My brother Joe was already more than 6 feet underground when one of our hometown's most famous landmarks fell through a giant hole in the earth. It was early Saturday afternoon. Just about all of Bayport had been planning to attend a street fair on the other side of town, but last week's disappearance of a couple of Bayport high school kids had put a stop to that. Instead, most of the townspeople were gathered on the lawn of the square in front of City Hall, waiting for Deputy Dixon to start a press conference. With our esteemed, and estimably grumpy, Chief of Police Olaf on vacation, the job of leading the investigation had fallen to his young protege. But since Deputy Dixon's daughter Layla happened to be one of the missing kids, he had a lot more at stake than just impressing his boss. I felt bad for Deputy Dixon. He's a good cop. He's also a lot nicer than Chief Olaf when Joe and I interfere with a police investigation, which kind of happens a lot. As Bayport's foremost amateur detectives, Joe and I have a special knack for solving crimes. It isn't our fault that a couple of teenagers happen to be better at it than the local police. We weren't officially looking into the missing kids, but Joe was friends with Layla, and I think he liked her as more than a friend, too. So we were keeping a close eye on things. Joe wasn't at the press conference, though. He was under it. He was helping Urbex, the local urban explorers club, map some of the old tunnels hidden under Bayport, the same tunnels that we had helped discover on another case. Police press conferences were usually pretty dull anyway, so we didn't think he'd be missing much. But I wasn't just at the press conference to investigate. I was also there as a photographer. A camera can be one of a detective's most important tools, and I was intent on learning my way around my new digital SLR. "Make sure to get some shots of Dixon's wife, too, Hardy," a sweet voice said not so sweetly behind me. "It would be great if you could get her crying while he's talking. The readers really eat up that emotional stuff." I turned around to find Charlene Vale, scribbling in the little notebook she carried everywhere. Charlene was the news blogger for our high school's newspaper, and, to be honest, she was another reason I was at the press conference. She was super smart and super cute, and I kind of had a little, okay, maybe not so little, crush on her. She wasn't exactly warm and cuddly, though. Charlene took being an investigative reporter seriously, which I totally respected, even if it meant she was pretty intense sometimes. When I'd learned she was looking for a photojournalist to help document her stories, I joined the paper as a photographer. Once the press conference starts, I'll open up the aperture and use a longer lens. That will make the deputy in focus in the foreground, with Delia slightly blurred behind him, I told her. Charlene didn't look impressed. "I don't care if you draw a picture with crayons, as long as you get the shot." Okay, I said, feeling myself blush. Sometimes I forget that not everybody gets as excited about technology as I do. "Pretty big turnout," Charlene observed, thankfully changing the topic. "This disappearance is a big story. I'd love to be able to outscoop the Bugle on this one." The Bugle was Bayport's daily newspaper, and it usually drew a lot more readers than our high school student-run website. Not always, though. Charlene had already beaten the Bugle to the punch on a couple of other big headlines this year. And this was a big story. Hundreds of people had come out to see what the deputy had to say, even some of the town's homeless population. I noticed a guy in his 50s, who everyone called Sal, pushing a shopping cart past the courthouse steps. "You know, I tried to interview him once for a story on Bayport's homeless population," Charlene said, pointing to Sal. "He wrote, 'No comment' on a piece of paper and walked away." "I guess no one told you he was mute, huh?" I chuckled. Sal had been a fixture around Bayport for as long as I could remember. I'd always wondered what his story was, but since he never spoke out loud, I'd never been able to ask him. I'd sometimes see him mouthing things excitedly, only no sound ever came out. "I hear Delia Dixon is a member of the Mayflower Society," Charlene said as Sal pushed his cart past where Layla's mom was standing, waiting for her husband to address the crowd. "Don't you have to be a descendant of one of the original pilgrims who sailed on the Mayflower to be a member of the Mayflower Society?" I asked. The history nerd in me got tingles.